Hello, welcome to Cable's Conquests. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and we're here to talk about Marvel Crisis Protocol.
The name's Cable. Remember it.
Hello, welcome back to Cable's Conquests. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and today we're not joined by Curtis, but a very special guest, someone who needs no introduction. It's Dr. Norbert. Norbert, how are you?
Well, Dr. Cable, nice to be here with you.
Yes, we're very excited to have you. Now, I said you'd need no introduction, but why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on this fantastic podcast. Really, really happy to do this. I hope I do it justice. I'm not used to doing these sorts of competitively things, considering myself more of a middling player. So I'll try my best, though.
I think Curtis and I are both probably middling players too, so we like to think it's a competitive podcast, but really...
It's a middling podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Dr. Norbert. I am originally from the New York City area, but I moved to London, 13 years ago now. And so I've been living here since. And I also came into miniature wargaming quite late. I started doing historicals at first, and then I switched into War Machine and Hordes. And I did that for like 14 years. And then the good old Pat Dunford gave me my demo of a Marvel Crisis Protocol around the same time that I was looking to switch games out of War Machine because I was getting a little tired of that. And MCP had just come out. So he gave me that demo and I was like, wow, this is perfect. Rules are tight, very cinematic flavor, a whole different type of approach to the game, being more skirmish oriented. And so I got into it and started building up the London meta as a result, and then started trying to build up the more international European community as well. So helped create some of the TTS leagues during the pandemic and run that, and then also helped launch the World Team Championship, the WTC for MCP. And now I like to travel around and try to get to see. For me, it's all about meeting people and competing against different fun guys and ladies, and also putting on events so that I can also kind of repay the favor for all the other organizers that have put on such nice events for me.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. You really are a pillar of the community in terms of bringing everyone together. I don't think certainly the international and London scenes wouldn't be the same without you. So thank you on behalf of everyone.
Oh,
and well, one of the great things is that we get to go away to tournaments. And for this podcast episode, we are talking about a tournament in France. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the event that you went to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. As you mentioned, I do like traveling to events, and in particular, I like to find ones that are happening in Belgium or France because I have a car now. And and I learned that taking the shuttle train from Calais from Folkestone to Calais is really not that difficult. And so sometimes it's more cost effective and more convenient to go with a bunch of guys in the car rather than taking the train or the plane. Anyhow, the point is that I started looking around because I unexpectedly had this weekend open up for me in April and realized that Paris was having this Paris GT, which I think is the first GT of the new season from AMG. I think so. And so it was also happening in Paris, so it was easy to get to. And it was very interesting in that it was connected to a Comic-Con that was happening there.
Oh, cool.
And I actually have never been to a Comic-Con, so that was kind of fun. So I convinced 3 other guys to come along. So Jamie came along, from my co-host from Across the Bifrost podcast. And we had Dave Miller come down from Cambridge, actually, to come with us, which was really super cool. And also Joel, also known as Holiday Joel, because he's off on holiday from school right now.
Oh, so he's got all the time.
Yes, Holiday
great.
Joel. He's a scamp. He's not at all like the other Joel. So he just got into the car too with us. And so those were the 4 of us that went down to the event. We left on Friday evening, just this past Friday evening after work, and went down there, got into the hotel around 11 p.m., so not too bad, actually. And then he had the event, 4 games on Saturday, then 2 games on Sunday, and then the trip home on Sunday night.
Awesome. Tell me about Comic-Con first. I guess it's your first Comic-Con. It's a rarity that it's coincided. What's that like?
Yeah, so it was held in a exhibition hall, like a generic type of exhibition hall. So think one big hall of lots of polished concrete floors and high ceilings and so forth. So some of it was stuff that I kind of expected. It was lots of stalls for vendors of various types, selling all kinds of stuff. So it ranges now from classic comic book stuff to science fiction type of stuff like Star Wars or Aliens, but also anime is like a big thing now too. There's loads and loads of anime type of stuff. So they have vendors selling all kinds of stuff, either prints or original artworks or books or accessories or like props for cosplaying. So that almost everything they had there. So it was really fun to kind of peruse all that sort of things. Not that I was going to really be tempted to buy any of it, which is fine.
I was going to say, did you pick up any goodies?
No, I don't. I don't like that kind of stuff. I mean,
Fair
I
enough.
don't like having lots of stuff around my room, so it doesn't appeal to me. I would have picked up some art if something really caught my eye. And as a matter of fact, there was a really cool print of some anime that I didn't really know from Netflix or something like that. I almost got something there like that because I liked it, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I ended up not buying that stuff. So
Very restrained.
then they have activities. So they'll have like you could do lightsaber fighting, or they'd have like Nerf like bats that you could use to fight with each other and stuff like that.
Nice.
But I think the main part of it was okay. So there's two other main parts, and I'll tell you the one I really liked. One was the cosplaying. The cosplaying was just crazy. So there'd be just people who are like a character, I would guess, and put together a homemade costume. So, just not to take away their effort or anything, but, you could tell it was like, I don't want to say amateurish in a negative way, but it was, basic. And the reason I say that is because then some of them were just like hyper realistic, like to the point where it didn't feel like this was like a costume. It was like it could have been the real character, and
Wow.
like with real armor or a real thing. And then some of them, according to Jamie, were actually professionals that are hired by the Comic-Con because theirs were hyper realistic.
Yeah.
There was a guy in a Doc Ock outfit where he literally looked like he had 4 operating cybernetic limbs, and he was being walked around by them, and then the limbs would move around and snap open and close like they did in the film, the last film and stuff.
Yeah.
It was crazy good.
Wow, like a step up from the blow up horses that you can sit on.
Yeah, that's basically what it was, but it was so well hidden that it really looked really realistic. And there was a Batman there that, honest to God, could have been like real life Batman fighting criminals and stuff. And then they would have big parades as well based on theme, so they'd have a science fiction theme one, and they had a guy who was pretending to be the villain from Terminator 2. He had liquid metal kind of body, sort of. Too? And he would go into like surveillance mode and stand there like dead still and just swing his head back and forth for literally 30 minutes. The guy didn't break character.
That's kind of creepy. It's sinister.
Yeah. I mean, but it made you feel like that's how it might have looked like if this was actually real,
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And this is all around you while you're playing MCP.
That's right. It's all happening there. We're in one side of the hall, and we were the only gaming thing happening there. So a lot of people stopped by, were intrigued by, I think, the miniatures that we had and things like that, because it was unusual for them. They had video games set up so you could play video games, and like Guitar Hero set up. And then the last thing is all the celebrity stuff. So they would have stages set up where they would have either people performing as cosplayers, or they would have Q&As with actors, or I don't know what else, some sort of demos and things like that. And then there was like where you could walk up and pay to get something signed by a celebrity, or a different line you could pay to have your picture taken with a celebrity, that sort of thing. So I think those were like the major aspects of what Comic-Con had to offer.
Wow, that's pretty awesome to have that all on your doorstep and get to play 6 games of MCP over the weekend. So how many were at the event? So 6 rounds, how many people?
6 rounds. I think we had 35 in the end. They were hoping for 36, but one person dropped the last minute. So we had 30,
okay.
but they had somebody to buy bash, so it was no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, that's decent turnout.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. Well, that's a great setting to start us off. So why don't we pause there and we'll go into your roster building in the next section.
You're boring me. If you want to help me nail them, get your team together and let's get started.
So Norbert, what filthy roster are you taking with you to Paris?
All right, I will. So the idea is that I had been playing Midnight Suns since the start of the year. So after WTC, I always take some time to kind of float through a number of different affiliations to see what kind of strikes my fancy. So I had been playing Midnight Suns, and I definitely liked them. They seemed a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun, and had some success with them as well. And I'm building towards, what I'm going to take to the Nations event in August here. So it's a team tournament.
Yes, because you've taken my place on the team. I'm going with that team for WTC. You're going with the same team for Nations.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. So I'm building towards that. So we were trying to narrow down what we're going to take or whatever. And I said, since I'm still experimenting, and I did a couple of runs now, a couple of tournaments with Midnight Suns, I said I wanted to try something else just to get a feel of it. And so I started casting about to see what might be going that I could give a try to. And we had to submit lists to this quite early before the event. And because of holidays and what have you, I didn't have a lot of time to go and practice something else. So I said to myself, okay, of all the things that I want looking at, the one that is interesting to me, but also maybe a little bit more straightforward to pick up would be Asgard.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. So that's how I settled on Asgard for those reasons, rightly or wrongly. That was kind of the logic.
Cool. So why don't you run us through your list?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I took Loki, Prince of Lies. So that's Loki 2. I took the Mighty Thor. That's Jane Thor, Lady Thor.
Nice.
I took Thor 1, the Prince of Asgard. And I took Thor 2, the Hero of Midgard. Beta Ray Bill, Lady Sif, Valkyrie, Namor without the gem, Baron Zemo 1, and Toad. Oh, and I should mention Gil Sarepi from Denmark. He helped me with the kernel of this list from his, so he and I had a little chat, and then I tweaked it a little bit after that. So I just want to make sure I gave him some credit.
Nice. Why don't you just run through the whole, so tactics cards and crises.
All right. So tactics cards were from Asgard. It was the Odin's Blessing, Freya's Blessing, Rainbow Bridge, and Giant's Blood. My restricteds were Patch Up and Brace for Impact. And then the other unaffiliated ones were Recalibration Matrix, Warpath, Joint Effort, and then I Am a Baron After All.
Of course.
Yeah. And then the crises were for the secures, I took Intrusions, Emkron, Deadly Meteors, and for the extracts, I took Scrolls, Deadly Legacy Virus, and Matesi Formula.
Nice. So you've gone pretty heavy on the Asgard. There are 7 affiliated, 3 leaders, which is pretty exciting.
Yep.
What leadership, first of all, are you aiming to play, or do you have different plans for each leader?
Yeah. So the default leadership is Mighty Thor, Lady Thor. It's just an all-rounder that helps mitigate some of the problems with Asgard, which is that they're very dice-dependent. In particular, some of their triggers that you really want to have happen sometimes won't happen. So having a reroll on the attack will help in that regard.
Yeah, so am I right in saying it's a reroll within 2?
That's right. If you're attacking and you're within 2, then you can reroll once per turn.
Right.
You can also roll once per turn, reroll a defense die if the attack is coming from outside of 2.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the idea is that you got to be up close and personal, basically. And if anybody's kind of being a bad sport and attacking you from a distance, then you get a bonus for that.
Yeah, nice. A little bit like Storm's leadership.
That's right. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Loki, it's interesting because we had a discussion about Loki 2's leadership on the Discord. And in particular, because if you look at it, it's very similar to Mighty Thor's. So his is that whenever the character is attacking, defending, or dodging, during the modified dice step, you can spend a power and you can re-roll one of the dice. And then Loki 2 gets a power randomly. So he can't use the leadership per se. He can't actually get these re-rolls. Other people on his team can, and then he gets a power for it if they do that.
Okay. Right. So it's like old Black Panther's Wakanda leadership, but it siphons power into Loki.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I ultimately decided that it's going to be rare, if ever, that I choose that leadership is, number one, Loki doesn't tend to need the power. He generates tons on his own, okay?
Yeah.
So that part doesn't matter. What is nicer is that you can use it as many times as you want during the turn, and it could be for attacking, defending, or defense without any range restrictions or anything, so very fluid. But the problem is that you have to spend power to do that. And even though it's acknowledged that Asgardians generate quite a bit of power, that's one of their hallmarks, I find that I use a lot of it as well. I don't have a lot lying around. And so I get quite nervous about then having to drain some of that and adding more mental load to me about whether it's a good idea to spend this power now or wait and use the power to do spenders or superpowers later on, that kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Makes your decisions a bit easier, doesn't it? You don't have to think about spending the power.
That's right, with Mighty Thor. Yeah. So I kind of decided against using his leadership for the most part. I haven't seen an instance where I might want to, comparative to Mighty Thor, despite her limitations. So that's kind of cast that one aside a little bit. But the interesting one is Thor 1.
Yeah. Don't see him as much.
No, but I find that his leadership, and I did actually use it. I tested it a few times and I used it during the tournament as well. I feel might be very handy in today's meta for two reasons. One, it's very attrition focused meta. So getting a free heal is helpful.
Yeah.
But more importantly, removing conditions is a really big deal now between Legions of the Lost and Thralls of Dracula and Servants of the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
They all are throwing tons of conditions out at you, and some of them can be quite crippling. So you're able to get rid of those each turn is quite handy as well. At least that was my theory. And so I've used him, I think, twice over the course of the 6, and I was happy to do that. I'll have to say, though, he still wants to, Mighty Thor is probably a better character overall speaking. So he was never really alone, so to speak. And sometimes I actually would run Thor 1 in there with Mighty Thor, but have her as the leader to help him get the triggers that he's looking for.
Yeah, I mean, his attack, right, his builder is fantastic. And with the charge needing to do damage to give out a stagger, that extra reroll could make a big difference.
And also getting the wild throw, which is helpful.
Yeah, so you've got Mighty Thor as the mainstay, as the leader. So what kind of core do you build around her?
So it's really interesting because I do flex quite a bit. I'll tell you this, Thor 2, the 6th threat Thor, he really only comes out on incursions.
Yeah.
Because incursion is where you get to teleport from one C point to another C point, and that solves his action economy problem.
Yes.
Yeah,
after he got hit by the nerf bat, he can have a bit of a problem getting around.
Right. But with that solved, then he can be quite a bully. And so that's when I tend to use him. And so that doesn't come up terribly often necessarily.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So he is very much specific, which is new.
Yeah.
Like he used to be everywhere. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where he shows up. As I mentioned, Mighty Thor is the one that tends to turn up all the time. I have to be honest with you, I actually play Beta Ray Bill quite a lot. Yeah. Even though he's gotten maybe a little passé. But I find that him and Loki 2 are a fantastic pair. This is because Loki 2 can teleport him, and that's one of his action economy problems. And secondly, if he's within 3, which he would be because they're kind of like tag teaming together, people will attack him. Not only will Bill be able to survive the attack because that's his thing, he's very durable, but then because they're pouring so many attacks to try to take him down because they'll typically have an extract, if Loki's nearby, every time they roll a skull into him, then he just does pity and keeps whittling them down as a result. So not only are they doing terribly much to Beta Ray Bill, but they're actively hurting themselves as a result because of Loki too.
Yeah, I like that. I hadn't thought about that. I guess, the damage reduction means he's taking chip damage more than he's taking big damage more often than not.
That's right. And so that means they're swinging more at him, and that means more chances for skulls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to round things out is Lady Sif. She is so good for 4th threat. She's just so good. Her and Mighty Thor tend to be the pair that I put together somewhere to be the murder side of the equation. Yeah. She tends to be an opening extract holder for me because she's got damage reduction. And if it's physical, she can do rerolls and has just good defense stats to begin with.
Yeah.
If I can't use her, then I default to Valkyrie, but I much prefer Lady Sif because Valkyrie just doesn't survive terribly well.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of similar in their attacks, right? But Valkyrie's just a lot squishier.
Yeah. And then if there's a lot of extracts on the table, or if I win priority, I'll use either Toad or Namor to pick up that center thing. So I mean,
right.
But I particularly like Toad. I mean, everybody likes Toad, but in Asgard, I like him because he does the extract job, so that the Asgardians don't have to worry about that job, and he's only 2 threat, so. Yeah. He can do that job and do nothing else, and they're fine with that. And also he helps me make the threat level points. Yeah,
because I guess when you've given me your kind of core, you're talking about 14 to 18 threat. Pretty hefty, so you need that too. So do you tend to, with your Asgard, go 4 wide?
Yeah, most of the time it's 4 wide, yeah.
So you're very much going for the bully Asgard.
yeah, you need to. And you'll notice here, these guys all have charges of various types.
Yes.
And that's the big deal for me in terms of the shift of this list, is that it's adding mobility to an attrition faction in that sense.
Yeah, nice. Because just looking at your crises, you've got two pay to flips, which
Yeah.
I guess Asgard of old would have been right down E Street.
Yeah.
So presumably the pay to flips is to do with this better mobility.
Better mobility, and the fact that they generate 2 power at a minimum each round means that they
Of
have the
course.
power to do these flips. So, like, sometimes I'll use Thor 2 on Mkron because he can just bounce around between the points, killing things, and then getting those points, getting that power to flip the points.
Yes, and Mkron's your only new crisis, so you didn't fancy any of the others. I guess they're a bit too fast scoring for you.
That's right. So the idea behind these secures was to have them as, all the crises are supposed to be slow scoring type of ones.
Yeah.
I don't mind whether they're pay to flip or not. We'll talk at the end of the show about some of the tweaks we made based on the car ride home and the discussion about things. And there'll be definitely some switches up here because of some key things that we learned over the weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point was to go as slow as possible and as narrow as I could, even though in today's environment, there aren't very many or really seriously narrow crises any longer.
Yeah. On that kind of, is there any tech that you have, say you have to come up against, I don't know, a web warriors, then you draw senators or something like that? Or, I don't know, you play against Kingpin on Scoundrels. Do you have tech built in, either in the form of characters or tactics cards?
So, yes, a couple things. So, a couple points though. So, if it's Scoundrels with criminals, I don't mind that so much because I'll use my charges to get to their points and then try to murder them, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I take care of that. It's a little trickier when there's a lot of extracts on the table and, web warriors are being a problem. And so then what I try to do is I do the opposite. I try to actually use my low-level characters as much as possible.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so it'll be like the Valkyries, the Baron Zemos, to make it as wide as I can go with whichever points there was, but also have that mobility still around to be able to chase down the opposing extract holders more than anything else.
Yeah, and I guess Loki himself is pretty good into something like webs where they don't like their mystic, so he can help you out there too.
Yeah, he's got problems in that he doesn't have good mobility on his own. I mean, he's got a long move, so that's great, but he can't get around very much. And so that's where you need something like Giant's Blood, which is one of the cards that I have to actually be able to motor around to other places.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that because I've played Loki 2 quite a lot, and I take Giant's Blood, and I really struggle to use it. Do you use it early?
No, this is the problem. And it's the same problem for Rainbow Bridge. They both have the same problem in that you have to drop the extracts that you're holding.
Yes.
So you have to get very good at deciding, okay, who's not going to have the extract and who is purposely not going to have it and is actually going to try to murder some other extract holder. And so you want to use these cards earlier on to get that character into position to then take an extract, and then the card doesn't matter so much anymore.
Right. Yeah. So I presume you're taking Odin's Blessing pretty much every time.
Yep, that's 100%.
You're taking Patch Up and Brace?
Not mostly Brace, 100% Brace. Patch Up, not necessarily. That card comes out for sure with Thor 2.
Yeah.
Because of his health pool, and sometimes the other ones. But I just find that my teams tend to be spread out far enough now that I oftentimes don't have time to, and I don't want to spend the power on healing, although I really want them to be healed, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I actually hadn't thought too much about that. I guess Patch Up's probably taken a hit with the new crises just because of they're just more spread out, so you're less likely to be able to get it off.
So I'll take Odin's Brace, Rainbow Bridge, even though a lot of times I'm learning now it's not good to take it. Recal, I definitely take Recal.
Right, okay, yeah.
So maybe those are the three. Rainbow Bridge tends to be a fourth, although I'm trying to wean myself off of that. And then, if Zemo's in it, then definitely the Baron Zemo card comes in. Otherwise, Warpath will come in.
Right, yeah, I guess that's useful to get your guys back when they're being pushed away.
That's right.
Brilliant. Well, I'm excited to hear about how this list got on. You've clearly put a lot of thought into it, and you had a very successful warm-up tournament before this event, I heard.
Yes.
Was that your first run out with Asgard?
Yeah, in a tournament. That's right. Yeah. So I had like 2 or 4 practice games before that, and then the tournament, which was a 4-round tournament here in London.
Which you topped the table.
Yeah, went 4-0 on that one.
So high expectations going into this. So why don't we pause there, and we will come back with your round 1 in Paris. Right, round 1 in Paris. You've had a good night's sleep. You're at Comic-Con. Who do you see across the table?
Okay, I was really thrilled because the first player was somebody that I know from the community for some time now. He was at the WTC. He was at the Mutant Weekender that we did this past
Ah,
January.
nice.
Yeah, and he's one of the great players in France. So I had
Mhm.
like a behemoth already first round, which was
Right.
not really the best way to warm up for an event, but here we are.
Yeah.
And so that person's name is Poulet, which is his nickname, of course, which I think means
Yeah.
chicken, just or a chicken.
I think so. Yeah. My limited French.
Which is kind of funny. So yeah, so I was thrilled to have him as the first match of a Saturday.
Nice. So tough first draw. You're playing against Cabal roster,
Yep.
Master of the World, still Red Skull 3 kicking about,
Yep.
with a few changes. And I see here you've drawn Legacy Virus and Wedding Party. So he wins priority,
Yes.
and you've got 20 threats. So why don't you run us through your list?
Yeah. So he chose his secures and ended up with Wedding Party, which I actually don't mind typically terribly
Mhm.
much. It's very spread apart, but also very 20 threat. And so I've learned that I can put a lot of my characters there together. And then I got Legacy Virus, which is, of course, right down the center.
So it's perfect. You can get all your toys out early.
That's right.
20 threat.
And so this is a good illustration of the teams that I like. So what'll happen is
Mhm.
I'll put Loki 2 and Beta Ray Bill on one secure.
Hmm.
And that's what is that, 9 points, and then I put Lady Sif and Lady Thor on the other secure, and that's another 9 points, and so it's 18 altogether. And then
Mhm.
and then good old Toad is the one who picks up the extract in the middle or
Nice.
somewhere else.
You'll grab an extract and
Bugger off.
run into a corner
Yes,
somewhere.
that's it. That's exactly what he does. Occasionally, and he did that in this game as well, he'll be primed and ready to move up to a secure. So if I'm really looking to pull forward on points or something like that, and I'm being
Yeah.
outnumbered at a point, he will then move up onto that secure, but that'll be a mid to late game move. So because I otherwise don't want to lose him, but it is a good way to keep me ahead on the points.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Poulet, he brings Master of the World. Is it a new look?
Yes.
New look Red Skull team?
100%. And it's exploited one of the biggest weaknesses I have in Asgard, in that he has tons of displacement there that
Right.
isn't
Yeah.
affected by doesn't come by an attack. And so I can't use like Warpath, for instance, and
Sure.
because I do want to hold some of the secures. Some of the key people holding secures can't use Rainbow Bridge, for instance. And so that was the downfall for me on this roster, is
Right.
partly my dice were extremely cold, and so the few instances where I was ready to really get back at him, because I could get myself back into position, but the dice just were saying no. I mean, he was even saying, what's going on? It wasn't. But honestly, I was up behind the 8 ball because of all the displacement. And the reason I say that is he had Red Skull 3 who can displace people with a superpower. He had Enchantress who does the displacements.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, very good. He had Ultron 2 with full of displacements. And then he also has Dracula, who doesn't he can displace actually, but also can move quite readily with his ability to go into wolf form.
Yeah.
And so he had piled up on where Lady Sif and Lady Jane were. He had Ultron 2 with the drones, of course, and Dracula with them. He had Bullseye taking the center point extract, which was annoying, and then hiding behind a size 4 piece of terrain. And then on the right side, where Beta Ray Bill and Loki 2 were, he had Red Skull 3 and Enchantress there.
Right.
And so they were constantly moving me off the points.
Yeah.
And in fact, Enchantress moves short, and that's shorter than Loki. That's longer than Loki's ability to move place within 2. So I still wasn't able to get Beta Ray Bill back into position after she removed people off. Yeah, it was really annoying. And then when Red Skull moves Loki 2, the problem with him is that he doesn't have a charge or anything like that. So he just has to blow either Rainbow Bridge or an action to try to get back onto the point.
Yeah, and this one can score quite quickly because it's 2 VPs on each side, and with the displacement. It sounds like Poulet as well had spotted your little combos, which are fantastic, but he'd got a nice counter with an Enchantress and Master of the World in particular, being able to displace your kind of slower, or not slow, but less economic characters.
That's right. 100%. So it was up to me that in the instances where I still had ability to attack them, that I could, the dice would come up for me and that I would try to damage them. But I literally wasn't getting any of that done. And I spent more of my time trying to get back on the point and holding down, preventing him from running away with the points.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't successful, as it turns out.
Yeah, so this one ended up 17-10 to Poulet. As we said at the start, he's a top player. But yeah, if the combination of him displacing you and your dice have got jet lag, it's a tough start.
So yeah, super great game though, really fun. And I felt I was playing really well actually to try to counter all of the different tricks that he was doing. And certainly it put me at a disadvantage. I understood that, but I felt like I was putting myself into positions to try to mitigate that as much as I could. But it also relied on me then after doing those moves to be able to attrition him a bit and start wiping out characters. And it just wasn't happening.
Yeah. Was he attritioning you very much?
No.
Was he able to do lots of damage? It was
he kept displacing me for the most part.
Yeah. Well, tough round one, but we're submarining here, Norbert. That's the plan. Lose game one, and we build from there. So let's move on to round two. Okay, so round two, we're going on the up, Norbert. Who do you see across the table for your round two?
Well, this was somebody new to me, and most of my rest of my players were actually new, except for one other we'll come on to. So his nickname on Longshanks is Palimpsesta, or something like that. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, Palimpsesta.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was my next opponent and was my new friend because I hadn't met him before.
Nice. Was he a local?
I've forgotten all of that. I did ask them all where they came from. Some of them were from Paris, but other ones came from all around the country, actually. So I've forgotten, to be honest, which region he came from.
That's all right. We'll move swiftly on. So he's got Steve Rogers. Is it Steve 3 or Steve 1?
He went with Steve 1.
Steve 1, nice.
Yeah.
And, wow, you draw another big one again. It's Legacy Virus again, and this time Superpowered Scoundrels, which we talked about in the start. And it's another 20 threat. So you lose priority again and go big again. Is that right?
That's 100% correct. Yes. And I did that because of the fact that I wanted to have as many characters as I could on the table to try to move around onto these various points and daisy KO the people that were defending them.
Yeah, nice. So who do you bring? I see a interesting decision here.
Okay. Yep. So Toad came along again, and that was to help to deal with the extract play, so the Asgardians could do other types of work. And then it was Lady Sif, it was Beta Ray Bill, it was Thor 1, and yeah, Mighty Thor, of course. Yeah, it was Mighty Thor.
But you go with Thor 1's leadership, is that right?
Yes. At this time I went with Thor 1's leadership, and I think it was because I expected him to do a lot of attrition, and so I wanted to have more healing capability on the table.
Right. Okay. So it's about the heal rather than the condition removal.
Correct.
That you're going for.
Yeah. And he took Steve 1, of course. He took Shang-Chi. He took Thor 1 as well. And Cable and Black Widow 1.
Right. Interesting. So he's also got a Thor. That's an I know it's not a splash, but it's quite an unusual pick in Avengers.
Yep. But, his Thor 1's charge goes online because of the leadership of Steve 1,
of course,
So it still makes a lot of sense, honestly.
Yeah. But I guess stroke of genius with the Thor 1 pick because you can remove that stagger if someone gets it on.
That's 100% right, yes.
And also from Shang-Chi being a stagger bot. So there's a lot of stagger going on, but you've got your tech. How does the game play out?
Yeah, so I got very, very lucky. I moved somebody up onto the one of the points, my home point, basically, and he moved Thor up to charge and then attack them twice, essentially, and just didn't do enough damage to take out the characters. Then Lady Sif charged him in return because she can do that turn 1. She's got, it's a 2-power charge, and she gets 2 powers straight away, so that's one of her advantages. Awesome. Yeah, and she just murdered him. the dice just woke up finally. They shook off their stupor from game 1.
Yeah, she was angry after game 1.
Yeah, so that was a big blow for him because that took a lot of pressure off of me and also had his character there. Now, I had to worry later because then he's got a really good spender with his area effect and he'd have a ton of power to use it later on. So I had to worry about that. Shang-Chi came through and tried to help take down my Thor 1 that was on the same point there. Didn't quite manage to do enough damage to do anything there. Beta Ray Bill had taken the extract on that side of the table, and so it got thrown away, but it was still scoring a point because he held the extract. And Toad was able to get the center extract and then bugger off onto a size 5 piece of terrain eventually and just hide there in cover. And also securing a point. There was a secure right next to all those the size 5 terrain. So he was getting cover and also scoring 2 points. And that is the ideal solution for Thor.
Yeah.
And what's nice about Toad is that normally people would go after him because of that. He's worth 2 points essentially. But they've got all these really nasty Asgardians roaming around that you can't really ignore very much. And so it becomes a hard choice for folks, I think, to either take on the easy target in quotes, but then also being vulnerable to letting the Asgardians have their way with every other character or scoring points elsewhere.
Yeah, of course. And there's a lot of points on the board. So yes, Toad is scoring 2, but you can, if they're going to pump dice into Toad, you can pick up the slack elsewhere.
Yes. So he had Cable, which was fantastic on this crisis setup because Cable can move around with his little body slide thing and then throw something quite big. It turns out he's got a range 3 pickup for the terrain.
Yeah, it's a brilliant throw.
Yeah, like wow. And there was loads of terrain on this table, loads of big terrain, which we both can throw, so it wasn't like one-sided. Yeah. But nonetheless, Cable was able to throw some stuff and then also shoot wherever he wanted to. So that was Lady Thor's primary target. She had to go after him because she has good energy defense and can charge him so he can't just stay away at range 5 and stuff and be able to attack him. So my priority was making sure that she was going after Cable and everybody else was trying to deal with Shang-Chi and Thor and Captain America.
Yeah, Shang-Chi's not the easiest to deal with, but with lots of throws around, I guess that's helps.
Right. Yes, exactly that. And rerolls as well too. And getting, Thor 1 hitting him and getting the trigger wild was all I needed sometimes to be able to throw him and stuff like that. So yeah. So that was the plan.
Nice. So this one did go well for you. You ended up 17-11. So you scored out. I guess normally if you're doing an attrition plan, you might want to try and take characters off the table. Did you end up taking a lot of characters off the table?
Thor 1 went down because his counterattack, as I said, it was going to be nasty, but it didn't do enough damage to really hurt me terribly much. Right. So then he got wiped out. Shang-Chi got neutralized. Captain America, I think I had Thor 1 going after him and not looking to do damage to him because chances are I wouldn't, but just to throw him around, throw him out of the way and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. Get him off the point.
Yeah. Because there were so many points, then I was able to also double up on characters in some areas and score the secures that way. Lady Thor managed to take down Cable or get him to move around because he was worried about getting taken down, which led her to go closer to where Black Widow was hiding with her extract. And so then I just threw stuff at Black Widow until she died.
Yeah, nice.
So it was all about the charges. It was being judicious about which secure I sat an Asgardian on and making sure they had enough power to be able to charge to another point.
Yeah. It sounds like as game 1 was kind of a bad matchup in the sense that he was just able to control you. It sounds like this one, especially with superpowered scoundrels, you're able to charge easily around the board and still get 2 attacks off.
That's right.
And throw stuff.
Because it was Thor 1, Lady Thor, and Lady Sif all are charging.
Yeah. Oh, well, fantastic. Well, congratulations. You're on the board, 1-1.
Yeah, it was really good. Oh, I real quick. Also, like I said, there was a lot of heavy terrain on this board, so that helped me as well because Asgardians throw tons of terrain.
Yeah. I guess you've got like 3 or 4 throws in there, which is pretty great. Well, no, great. So let's move on to round 3. Great. So we're 1-1 now, Norbert. We're on the up and up. Round 3 coming in hot. Who do you see across the table?
All right. I have another new friend who I hadn't met before, which was fantastic. His nickname on Longshanks is Von Lake. And I should say all the French players that I played, all 6 of them, were just fantastic to play against. Super nice, very clean in their play, very cordial. In some cases, in particular my last opponent, really jovial as well, which is something that I'm not terribly good at playing the games. And it's only because I don't want to be. It's because my brain can only do so much, and I'm trying so focused. I'm so focused on trying to do well in the game. It doesn't leave me much bandwidth to be my normal self, which is really to be as outgoing as possible.
But no, it's always great when you're at an event where everyone just wants to kind of have a good time and roll dice.
Yeah, no, and be serious about it at the same time without being oppressive, And that's the kind of vibe I got there, which is the ideal kind of a game for me.
Fantastic. And I see he is playing Namor-led Shield, and you draw you win priority this time.
Yeah.
First priority
Wow.
win. So you get scrolls and extremis. So you go for your extracts. Interesting.
Yes, and I think that's because I don't like his secures as much or whatever. I basically am trying to look for slower scenarios. Okay, and so I actually don't mind playing on any of the crises for the most part, but so long as there are a combination of slower scoring ones. And so
Right, I
yeah,
see. So presumably his extracts were like 5 or 6
yeah, that's
wide.
right. Yeah, yeah. And being shield, that's exactly what I expected. That
Yeah,
they would
sure.
want that, and they're good at that. So I needed to make sure I mitigate that as much as possible. So winning priority here was a big deal.
Yeah. So, and you go with 17. Well, he chooses 17 threats. So what's your team at 17?
Yeah. Okay. I think here I used Toad again. I used Lady Thor, Beta Ray Bill, and Baron Zemo. Oh, and Valkyrie. Sorry, and Valkyrie.
Yeah, yeah. So you go that little bit wider to mitigate for the fact that there's quite a few points on the board.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And it's hard at 17 because, the Asgardians are so expensive for the most part. But 10, when I go down to 17, that tends to be when Baron Zemo turns up.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had to go to Valkyrie instead of Lady Sif, and that was a problem.
Yeah. But I guess she doesn't mind the extremis because she can kind of do one-on-ones, which she's slightly better at because she's less likely to just get beaten up.
Yeah, yeah. Now, unfortunately, the way things worked out that round, I actually had to send her up to get the extract on that side of the table. And it was a problem because he had a few, he had the shield and shield grunts there, and he had Agent Venom up there. And it was a real problem. Now, she did really well for the most part. She weathered the first attack. Then Baron Zemo was able to go up and help her by having his reroll bubble there, and he also was holding a secure point as well. So he was doing double duty, which was ideal. Between him and blowing some cards, she managed to survive like an entire onslaught of everybody going into her, but did in fact, yeah, she did. But she did in fact die or daze at the last attack, and so I lost the extract. However, he had devoted a lot of his resources into doing that, and so the rest of the board I had an easier time with.
Nice, and I guess this might be where the Mighty Thor rerolls in defense with the Zemo reroll, you're basically doing what Shield do.
yeah, in some senses. Now, Agent Venom is a nuisance because he doesn't allow that sort of stuff.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I had to deal with him in other different ways, but all the rest of the characters, it was absolutely fine. So, like for instance, in this scenario, because he was so focused on trying to get that extract off of Valkyrie, which made sense because she's quite vulnerable, it didn't work out for him, and yet I was able then to have Toad with an extract sitting on my home point, all the way in the bottom of the board. So again, doing double duty, which is ideal for him for 2 points. Beta Ray Bill was devoted on a right flank, and he was all by himself. And so you'd be like, oh, fourth threat hanging in there. But he literally, nobody would come near him, and he would just score points because of that.
Yeah. And did he have that extract?
Yes. And he had a lot of terrain around him. So anybody who would come here, my goal was to just throw stuff at them, not actually hit him, which is what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So then it became a matter of Baron Zemo, Valkyrie, and Lady Thor in the middle and on my left, trying to concentrate on the rest of his characters and attrition them.
Yeah, nice. Because I guess, he's probably quite scared to come up and grab those central extracts because you've got quite threatening characters.
He had Namor, though. He had Namor, and Namor actually took some extracts off of me and was my biggest priority problem.
Yeah.
Because he's got the stagger, he's got the movement abilities, he does quite a bit of output. And so I had to really try to focus on him, but at the same time, have to worry about the bloody shield agents and their extract play, which is annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very good. But despite all you managed to work your way around these, and you managed to take this one 20 points to 11, so a reasonably big score in the end. I imagine that's Beta Ray Bill and Toad getting you a lot of those points.
That's right. They were unmolested most of the game, and so we're scoring a ton of points, and I was able to get some good attrition hits into his team, particularly against Nick Fury and the shield agents. And so I was able to get a hold of his extracts and keep their point scoring down. And so that's how I was able to win this game.
Great, well, fantastic. Another win in the bag. You're 2-1 now. Let's see how you do in the final game of day one. So we're halfway through the games, but we're at the end of day one. We have one more game to go. Who do you see across the table for your final game?
Okay, so this is one of the few all the people I played. This is the only other one that I knew already. His name is, or his nickname anyway, is Sorrel. And we have played each other in the past. I'm pretty sure we have. I certainly know him from WTC days and seen
Right,
him around.
yeah, nice.
Super nice guy, very good player, and just very clean player as well. He was just really great to play against. And I have to say, this was one of the few drawbacks of being at the Comic-Con. Like the Comic-Con was always quite noisy, but I could deal with it. It was like the hum, and you could hear some of the panelists talking on the microphones, but I was able to at least wipe it out. But then they would occasionally do music concerts, like in little mini music concerts. And towards the end of the day, Saturday, they had some headliner there, and they had cranked the music up loud, and it was so loud. It was very hard to play. I would just walk over to, and plus the language barrier on top of that.
Yeah.
So I would walk around and we would talk to each other, or we just use fingers to do, like, certainly when we did results of, how many hits you got or how many, we just use fingers to work it out. So that was a bit of a struggle, and it was affecting him pretty heavily as well. So I felt bad about that, but
What time was this at? What time was the final round?
We ended at 7 or so must have been, I guess, about 5.
Okay, all right. So it wasn't even that late. They were just cranking up the music.
Well, because the last event of the con, because the con I think also shuts down at 7 for the day.
Okay. But despite this, you're soldiering on. You see Sorrel with his Steve Rogers across the table. So it's another Avengers. It's another Steve one.
Yes.
And you draw Unexpected Guests, so another new one, and Deadly Meteors.
Yep.
So 17 threat, this one. You had priority, so you'd gone with your secures, I see.
Yeah. Mine looked more appealing, and I was lucky to get Deadly Meteors, which is actually remarkably good for Asgard. I don't know if that's perceived wisdom or not, but for me, I really like this scenario.
Well, it's that kind of pay to flip.
But also very centrally located.
Yeah, and quite slow scoring.
Yes.
So it's kind of ticking all the boxes. And remind me what Unexpected Guests is again.
Yeah, I need to remember that myself now because these new ones are still kind of unfamiliar. Let me quickly look it up.
Yeah.
Unexpected Guests Crash Royal Wedding. Okay, so this is where you have 4 civilian tokens that are kind of set up like sword base, I think. So it's a box basically in the middle. And you can only hold one at a time. And then during the power phase, for each character player that has a guest is not within 2 of a secure, then the controlling player, the opponent, can choose a secure, and you're pushed towards that secure. So basically, it helps to pull people. Unless you need to be near secures, or else you get pushed towards the secure.
Yeah. So actually, you probably quite like this one because you're a bit of a fighter, and presumably, Sorrel's gone for a Steve 1 attrition roster.
Yeah. So that's exactly the correct. That's exactly what I was thinking. But the problem was he was super clever on how he dealt with the extracts. And so what I mean by that is that he had Black Widow 1, grabbed an extract, and then ran behind a tree that was kind of in line with the secure point that the tree was across from. And then he had Black Cat take the middle extract and run behind another piece of terrain that was again in line with the middle secure point. And the reason I mentioned that is that when it came time to see if the pushes could happen, I couldn't push them because the terrain basically blocked them from going towards any secure. They were stuck there. So he was getting 2 free extract points every round, admittedly for the cost of 5 threat, that I couldn't do anything about because they were all the way in his deployment zone and had terrain that was preventing them from being moved forward.
Smart. I guess that he's clearly played this a couple of times and figured that out. And this is what we're getting to in this new crisis era. We're figuring it all out.
Yeah, very possibly. It was super clever and very frustrating for me. So I had to just ignore them and figure out how do I deal with the secures. It was all about the secures for me at that point.
Yeah.
Because there's only then 2 extracts on the table that are in play, essentially.
So sorry, go back a step. What team did you bring? You were at 17 threat.
Yep. So I took Beta Ray Bill again. Oh, surprise. Zemo 1 came out because it's only 17 threat. And I took Loki 2. Yeah. And who must be Mighty Thor?
She's presumably your leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I never use Loki 2's leadership.
So you decide you need to focus down on the secures, which I guess is good. Are you able to flip them all in round 1, or do you keep a little bit less?
I don't remember if I flipped them all, but I know that the one that Beta Ray Bill was on, all the way on my right-hand side, was, again, as usual, not contested by anybody else. And so he just sat there guarding it, essentially. And anybody came through, or sometimes he would move to the middle point, throw somebody off the middle point, and then move back onto the back point, Because even though I flip it, I want to kind of protect it so it doesn't get flipped again, because I don't have a lot of threat to be able to come and have somebody else come up and try to fix it for me, essentially.
Sure.
So yeah, here it was all about Loki too. He was able to actually do a clutch rainbow bridge and move across to the other side of the table and
Wow.
start to then just tank the left secure all
Mhm.
by himself. Can I just say, while his leadership might be questionable, he as a character is unreal.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
is
I agree.
such a good character. I mean, maybe too good because he does lots of stuff. He's very aggravating to the other team. And so I find him very able to hold, like Beta Ray Bill, he just holds points on his own.
Yeah, people really don't like attack. He's very low key, isn't he? He's just irritating. Isn't he? He doesn't do like big chunks of damage very often,
Yep.
but he just does so much chip damage. And that counting skulls in your opponent's
Right,
attack
exactly
roll
that.
is really, really good. It just helps you kind of survive that little bit longer. And then you're getting pitied. So I guess it's then even less of a incentive to attack him.
Exactly all of that. 100% the same. Plus, then he's pitying people that are his friends that are nearby to him and potentially moving them into position. So, like, his big thing is I do 2 attacks. So, and often the spender, believe it or not, the spender.
Really? Yeah.
But yeah, because to get people off the point, essentially, it's more about that than
Yeah.
doing damage. And then I pay to flip it. So he gets a fair amount of power from all of his attacks, and then he just spends the 2 to move whoever got moved out of position back into place.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Yeah.
And then pity. I just sit there pitying people all day.
Yes, and if you're able to do the spender, then he probably doesn't need the leadership if he's doing that. And on this, he's got 4 energy defense.
Yep.
So he's able to flip quite
Yep.
easily. And also, if your opponents are having to flip back and they roll a skull, they're also getting chip damage. So it's just whammy after whammy from Loki. So it sounds like a good pick. And it looks like it was a good pick because it got the win, 18-8. So pretty handy win in the end.
Yeah.
I guess your attrition able to come through for you.
This was a lot of attrition in this one. Yeah. He had
Yeah.
those 2 extracts, so he had limited amount of threat then to go forward into me. And I rode fairly well. I wouldn't say hot. And with that kind of onslaught, it's not a lot that can stand in their way. I asked my teammate for Nations, I said he played against me and I won against him on that Sunday that I won the event. And I asked him, I said, because, I'm very bad about seeing what my team feels like against the opponent. Like to me, I'm always feeling just oppressed by them.
Yeah.
I never understand how much pressure I'm putting on them. So I asked him that, and he said it's just they are beefy, they have a lot of output, and they got a crap ton of power, and so it's just a lot. It's a lot for most people to deal with, which is why Pule was so successful against me. He didn't deal with any of those things. He just displaced me.
Yes, I guess they're all chunky characters that can do a lot with their power as well. So they're not that appealing to attack. So yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I learned, Archie, is I get triggered very easily, which is it's a mental thing I'm working on. But and what I mean by that is unless I'm dominating the game, I feel like I'm losing. It's
Right. Okay.
and it's not arrogance. It's actually sheer insecurity, to be honestly.
Yeah.
That's driving that. And so what I had to learn about this over the course of the weekend, I got better and better at it, is that I will have mediocre round 1 and often round 2. But I have to recognize that they are batteries, and when they start getting charged up with power from mid to late game, they are monsters. Oh my Lord, is it problematic? So I have to be okay with going, like if I go even on points or it's amazing. If I go down on 1 or 2 points, it's okay. I have to tell myself it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Because then I make up for it quite quickly from the late, early to middle game.
Yeah, you have your swing, and that's quite a difficult mental state to be in.
Yeah, I'm not used to that because I used to play more scenario-focused teams, and it was all about getting up on points and then holding on to it. And that's not what's going on with Asgard for the most part.
Yeah, well, nice. Well, fun to play something new. You've got to the end of day 1, 3-1, so you're doing pretty well.
I was thrilled. I was amazed. I was so happy.
So why don't we pause there and we'll come back to hear about your day 2. So you're back for day 2, hopefully well rested. Anything big happen on the Friday night?
We were so exhausted from playing and also having to deal with that extremely loud music at the end that we couldn't do anything but walk to the hotel. And thank God they had a really awesome buffet dinner kind of offer. So it was like €23, I think it was. And it was all you can eat and had a massive variety of types of food and vegetables included. It wasn't just meats and things. It was lots of vegetables, lots of different starches. And so it was a really great thing. But best of all, they had, I'm an aficionado of Belgian beers, and they had Left Blonde on tap there at the hotel. So I couldn't have been happier. So I had a big goblet of that to kind of unwind a little bit. We had dinner, and then we had another round of Left to just completely chill out before bedtime. And then we all went to bed early, to be honest with you. Yeah, we were
nice.
All four of us were exhausted.
Well, 4 games in a day at Comic-Con, then you have a couple of strong beers and a big dinner. That's going to put you to sleep pretty effectively. So you're well rested for day 2.
Yeah, we felt good waking up on Sunday. Yep. Good.
So you rock up day 2, and who do you see across the table?
Okay, another new player. His name is Shrug, and he was playing Thralls of Dracula.
Oh, that's exciting. So you have no idea what characters he's going to play. He can do what he wants. You win priority, and you draw Montesi Formula and Deadly Meteors. So do you go for your secures, presumably? I guess you're both pretty scrappy teams.
Yeah, exactly that. I was quite worried about it. And so I forget what he had in his list, but I definitely preferred Deadly Meteors.
Yeah. So at 17 threat, what do you bring along to counter Dracula?
Yeah, so I took Baron Zemo, Beta Ray Bill, Thor 1 came along, and Loki 2 as well.
Nice. Okay, so Loki's performed well for you in the last game. So he's getting a run out again. And so presumably goes Thor 1 leadership.
Yes, so exactly that. And the reason for that was very deliberate, because he could play either Mephisto leadership or he could have played Dracula leadership. I didn't know which was going to come.
Okay, the double.
And either one could have happened, and both of them are condition dependent. And so again, this is exactly why Thor 1's in the roster, and it was to be used his leadership to try to mitigate that.
Nice one. So what kind of a flavor of Dracula has he brought? So
his was brutal. This is a meta list I think people need to start becoming aware of, because it was really bad for me, and I could see it being bad for lots of people. It was Dracula as the leader, it was Mephisto, it was Loki 2, and it was Bullseye.
Oof! So 3 big hitters.
Yes.
And Bullseye.
Yeah. So the problem is Mephisto would lead most of the action, because the moment I would try to do something to Mephisto, he would either portal in Dracula or a portal in Loki 2. Okay, and so what's the problems there? Well, Loki 2 just doesn't take damage easily and pities you back, which is a problem. Or if he brings Dracula in, Dracula then does counterattacks. And he's nasty. He's really good at it. And furthermore, mitigates his movement problems, which is like his one weakness. You know, it was awful. And that's why this game I couldn't do. I was being super clever about trying to throw. Like a lot of times Thor 1 would just bank on throwing, because I wanted to throw Loki 2 outside of range 3 of Mephisto. So then my other characters could try to, tank onto Mephisto. But then he would have Dracula in the wings as well. So then Dracula would get portaled in. So it was one of the two that were happening. And so that was how this game went down. He tabled me. I got completely wiped off the table.
Wow. And that's a hard thing to do against Asgard. Jeez, with Bill around as well.
Bill, Loki 2. I had Bill, Loki 2, Thor 1, and Zemo. Got completely tabled.
Wow. Yeah, I guess he's hitting hard. And I've played a little bit with Mephisto. Mephisto can just do a lot of damage.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure he's okay, Archie. I am not sure he's okay. He's got movement capability. He's got loads of damage output, more attacks than you expect, plus then like the auto damage attack that he can do. And then you can't attack him back without other people taking the hit for him. So he held an extract for most of the game, and I was desperately trying to take him down to get that extract, and it just wasn't happening.
Yeah. He's a good extract holder, because he can bring people forward if they're in the right position. And I've heard a lot about him and Dracula together, and I guess with the Dracula leadership, with the 2 characters, you then get your opponent guessing. So he went for Dracula. Do you know why he went for Dracula over Mephisto?
I should have asked that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I guess maybe he doesn't want to give you the extra power with the...
Yeah, but that's probably it, yeah.
But wow, a brutal start to day 2.
Yeah, it was not great. He was a super nice guy. We played very cleanly and everything was lovely. Oh, and on top of all that bodyguard business, he also had sacrifice.
Oh, yeah. Why not? Double down.
So I loved it. I loved coming across it. It was a really cool list. And like I said, I would like to alert the community to this and see if this is because Mephisto, he's 5 threat, but man, you know, Thor 1 5 threat versus Mephisto 5 threat, it's not even a contest.
Yeah, and I guess probably particularly with Mephisto, if you haven't played against him much, he'll surprise you because the amount he can do in a turn, and you might be silly and attack him early because you don't realize, and then suddenly everything's happening.
Right, exactly that. The only thing I could think of to advise people is to try to get him outside of 3 of his friends, which I did a lot of times, but like I said, he had a lot of other mitigations to manage that problem.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it as well is about managing how many tokens he has.
Yeah, but he gets them really easily, you know?
Yeah, he does.
So, yeah, yes, that is a thing. But the moment he does 1 damage at all on a pretty big dice roll, which is a superpower, it's not even attack, you know, he's able to do what he wants.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you had to experience that. I'm quite excited because I like Mephisto as a character, so it's fun to hear that he's doing well. So tough start to day 2. Why don't we go on to the final round of the event, round 6, to see how you get on. Final round, Norbert. Who do you see across the table?
Well, I'm going to say this was probably my favorite game of the whole 2 days, mostly because the guy, his name is Francois Black Bull Henry on Longshanks. He was just so jovial. I mean, oh my Lord, he was just having fun and was able to say some comments about how the characters were acting during the course of the game, like that kind of stuff that I really like and wish I could do more of myself. Yeah. But as I said, I don't have the mental capacity. I really wish I could, but I just don't, I can't do it. And he was that kind of a guy. So it was super fun to play against him. And my only regret is sadly, this game actually went to time.
Oh, okay. Were you, sorry, I didn't ask, were you on clocks for this?
Yeah. The thing was, it was not just, we had chess clocks that were playing, but there was also a round timer, which was the bummer.
Okay.
And so we ended up running out, the round timer ran out. And so ended the game slightly prematurely and was so close to finishing too. So it was frustrating. It was, I have to be honest, it was a frustrating end to game because it was such a good game that I really wanted it to come to its full conclusion.
Yeah, that's a shame. But you are playing a nice beefy game to finish, 19 threat, so it's hammers and intrusions. So you lose priority, but he decides to go for your secures, presumably.
Yeah.
And he is playing, we talked about him in the last one, Mephisto.
Yes.
But it's Lord of the Lost. It is Mephisto's own, Legion of the Lost, sorry. Mephisto's own affiliation.
Yeah. Which was good because putting incinerates on Asgardians is a great thing to try to weaken their inherent defenses.
Yeah.
I ended up taking Beta Ray Bill, which of course is immune to it. So that was helpful. So I took Beta Ray Bill, Lady Sif, and I took Lady Thor, and I took Thor 2. Because this was incursions. This was the one time he's coming out to do this work. Yeah.
First and only time that Thor 2 comes out, which we wouldn't have said, a month ago or however long. Not tempted by Thor 1? Was it the Thor 2 of it all that didn't tempt you to bring Thor 1 to remove those conditions?
Yeah, exactly. I felt that with incursion, first of all, I kind of wanted to test, to be honest with you, it was more like I wanted to just test to see if this was really good.
Fair enough.
But I felt he was going to be an attrition-focused team. I needed to out-attrition him a little bit harder than normal, and I had Thor 2 to do that. And so would use Lady Jane to try to out-attrition rather than using Thor 1. Because there's a couple of problems with Thor 1's thing. First of all, you have to do it in the power phase, which sounds like not a big deal, but honestly, you have to predetermine who's going to need power or who needs to be healed earlier than stuff happens on your turn, which is
right. Okay.
I honestly feel like in this day and age, it hasn't aged terribly well. Like that leadership could easily be at any time during the term and not be broken,
Right. So sorry, it's not in the power phase, right? It's at the start of an activation. Is that? Yeah.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah, at the start.
Yes, I see.
But before you do anything in your activation, you have to decide to use the leadership and with whom.
Yeah, and probably actually even if it was just at the end of the activation, that might be better as well, just because then you can plan ahead a little bit more.
Yeah. So it's a problem using his thing, and it's not that much. Getting rid of conditions is quite good, but of course these guys can put it right back on you. But healing a power, sorry, healing a damage is also always helpful. I'm not saying it isn't, but it isn't like really like massive compared to some leaderships out there today. So anyhow, I went with Lady Jane.
So what Mephisto flavor did Francois bring?
He brought Red Skull 2, which is a fantastic choice here. A lot of output, and he also could just dedicate his grunts to hold us secure. Took Cosmic Ghost Rider, another high output thing. Lots of Incinerate as well there.
Yeah.
And then he took Luke Cage, which I imagine is mostly there to just be a bodyguard for Mephisto. So I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, so Mephisto throws him in front, and then he can just bodyguard for days. Yeah. Ouch.
Yep. And that's what happened. And here is really, we both played really well. It was on a tightrope the entire game, but there were just some key moments where I flubbed rolls that just left people on one and wrecked my world as a result. So
the classic MCP alive on one.
There was one moment where Thor 2, I did his spender, and I think it's 8 dice, maybe 10. I can't remember now. Thor 2 did that spender. He needed to get literally 1 hit point through, and I rolled nothing but, I swear to you, it rolled nothing but blanks and shields.
Oh.
And that's when I walked away from the table. I said, I need a moment.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You didn't have recount?
I probably used it already at that point because of Mephisto's nonsense, And then Lady Jane went after CGR and just couldn't put him down as well for similar reasons. And so it was just miserable. And so it was really good, though. I still held it together. I still didn't tilt, even though I did need a moment. I didn't tilt, and I was holding it together. And it came down to the last round. I had finally wiped out his CGR. I finally wiped out his Red Skull 2. It was just Mephisto and Luke Cage on the table. And I had Beta Ray Bill and Lady Sif there on 10 power each.
Wow.
And so I was ready to murder them, and then time ran out, and they scored it, and we ended up, he pulled ahead because Luke had 2 hammers at that point, and so he pulled ahead, and we tied on points, so we ended up on a tie.
Oh, so 13-13, I see the score. So this was at the top of round 6, was it? Or was this a bit way through
round
4,
maybe, that we got to? Yeah, round 4 of the game. It was the last round of the tournament.
Yeah. Well, a rarity in MCP, I have to say. I've not seen many draws. I was very intrigued by this one when I saw it. But yeah, I guess the timer going out, that's a real shame. But it sounds like a great game to finish. It sounds like Asgard did very well to do so much damage to that team, because it's a pretty tanky team and a pretty hard-hitting team.
Yes, with movement shenanigans for days.
Yeah.
You have CGR pulling my guys in awkward positions. You got Mephisto moving people around wherever the hell he wants, essentially. And Luke Cage just being... Oh, and that was the other thing. I could have scored it out, but Luke Cage was attacking Beta Ray Bill, who was off of a point. And all I needed for him is... I was like, it's fine. He's going to absorb the damage, no problem. All I need, Dice Gods, is... not to roll the double wild so he gets staggered. Okay, so like when I play Luke Cage, that never happens. It's totally fine. And he played with the new yellow dice that we got as gifts for the, and those MFers rolled those double wilds, just staggering Vader and Bill, and I took another moment, as a matter of fact. I think I walked away from there.
That never happens. I've played Luke Cage plenty, and he never gets the double wild. It's just there.
It was a clutch double wild. It's always nice, but in this moment, it was essential, and that MFer got the damn double wild and screwed up Beta Ray Bill's activation, and I could have won the damn game at that point. So, it was one of those epic games for that. It's miserable at the moment, but afterwards I'll never forget it because it was epic.
It's those stories is why we play the dice games, whether we win or lose by them. Yeah, especially I guess at the end of a long day, it's always fun to have those moments that you can come and report back. It's partly why we started up this podcast, because we could report back on all the nonsense that happens.
Yeah, it's 100% what happened. So that's how we ended the game. I think I ended up 13th, maybe 12th. I think I don't remember, but I was super stoked to that.
Yeah, I think 13th. Yeah, 3-2-1, so positive win-loss ratio. Yeah. Let's pause there, and we'll debrief and hear what you would do differently.
Right on.
I don't mind being wrong, as long as I can correct my mistakes.
Well, congratulations, Norbert. After 6 hard-fought games, you've gone above the win-loss barrier, just 3-2-1, a rare draw. How did you find the event? How did you find your list?
I am remarkably happy. Like I said, didn't have high hopes for them because I thought I'm not like one of those guys who overreact about nerfs, but with Thor 2 being nerfed, rightly nerfed, I was like, well, okay, maybe they're not so great anymore. Nobody's playing them really. Everyone's doing the new hotness and stuff, yada, yada. And like I said, I took them because I basically thought, well, maybe I don't have to think about it too terribly much. They just go and try to kill stuff. But it turns out that I've gotten clicked with them quite a bit. And it's mostly because I had the same thing when I was playing Shadowland Daredevil in the first WTC. I built my Shadowland Daredevil not to be about a center like located team. All my characters are extremely mobile, and so they were meant to hunt down people at secures wherever they might be, and I had a great time and success with that. And so I took a similar tact with these guys, and I guess the new characters in Asgard allow them to be that way, so they've been clicking with me, and I've been having a lot of fun to the point where I'm feeling like I'm going to commit to them to go to Nations in August.
Excellent. Well, I mean, this seemed like a tough event. You had a good results with them, and you've had a good result in the previous event. So stick with them. It sounds like it's always great when you find that new roster. You don't play too many games with them, but you just vibe with them, and that's always fun.
Yeah, exactly that. You just vibe with them. I'm having fun with them, even though they have their weaknesses, but I can at least I understand them.
Yeah.
And either between finding ways to tweak my list to mitigate them, but also relying on the team format to try to help save me from those problems, I feel like I want to commit to them. And I haven't told my team this yet, so this is news.
Maybe you shouldn't tell the team and they'll just listen to this, and that's how they'll hear. On the back of that, especially if you're going to stick with them, are there any changes you'd made? You've talking about them in the car on the way home. What changes would you make?
So we're going to try some things. These are changes that seem sensible, partly to improve the way they can play, but also partly to help make me fit better into the team format, because I have some cherry splashes, obviously.
Yeah.
Toad, Namor, and Zemo 1 are all highly sought after, so I had to think about that sort of thing.
And I guess Namor didn't come to the table, did he, this weekend?
No.
Right?
And so that was a lesson. So Toad definitely does work. Zemo does, especially when I have lower threats. Namor, though, it really depends if I have a higher threat and I also win prio, because he's there for the center grab for the most part.
Yeah, sure.
So what am I going to change? So first of all, and this was, I think, one of the most key important things, is that my group told me in the car that Montesi is a problem for me. And it's a problem not because it's low scoring, which it is, it's because it's an odd number. And if the opponent has priority, they'll have some way to take that middle one. And so now they're up on extracts. Yeah. Whereas my other ones are evenly spaced, and I'm fine with that.
Sure.
So I'm going to dump Matesi and add in inhuman weapons to replace them.
Nice.
Yeah. Why? Because it's evenly placed. Furthermore, it's 4, but it's 4 of them where there's 2 grouped together, essentially. Which means Asgard can charge whoever took the first one, do damage to them, and then still have power, even if they don't do any damage, still have power to pick up the other one that was next to them.
Yeah, nice.
So I'm super excited about that, actually, because Skrulls is one of my favorite, in part because of Toad. Toad can safe grab the center-friendly Skrull, But I love that for similar reasons. So I'm looking forward to trying Inhuman weapons over Montesi for that.
Nice. And it's kind of similar to Montesi, right, in the sense that it's the beam,
which nobody ever uses, so I'm not worried about that. And even if they did, I have great energy defenses for the most part. So it's...
yeah. So don't have to worry about that. And it's great to get some of the new crises on the table.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's one more choice I'm gonna make: a swap with the secures. I really like Deadly Meteors. For some reason, it really clicks with me. It's a pay to flip, but it's also centrally located. Plus, I could do Rainbow Bridge or the Loki teleport and get around the table quite easily to the other, who needs flipping. So that's quite good. But we're going to dump that one to try. So this is less certain. We're going to try Guardian Save Shi'ar Empress in style.
Yeah.
It's also a pay to flip, which I think I'm actually okay with because I can move around this narrower sword-based type of shape, this square box. I can move around them and flip, and I'm good at flipping. Well, because I have power. Because this one, you don't use like your defense dice. You just roll 3 dice, and everybody gets the same chance. But I have a lot of power to do it, so it doesn't bother me to try to flip more than one. So we're going to give that one a go.
Nice. Yeah, I really like this crisis. I liked Old Sword, but the problem was it was 15. And so it's nice that you've got one here that is essentially like Sword, but it's 17. And for Asgard, I guess, leaning into that pay-to-flip game, which a lot of teams don't like, is a good way of going. it probably means that when you lose priority, they're more likely to go for your extract, which I guess you're quite comfortable with.
Yeah, right now, especially with that switch to human weapons.
Yeah.
Yep.
So going back to your characters just briefly, I know you mentioned, dropping Namor. Have you thought about bringing Angela as that safe grab?
100%. That's exactly right. So a couple of things. So one is it's unlikely I'll be able to keep Namor. Secondly, I didn't really use him except for that one reason. And so it's not often enough that, whereas Angela doesn't do what he does, she does the key part that I was taking him for. And then she makes up for it by being affiliated. And also, if there's a weenie list coming up against me, she's fantastic at taking down weenies because she's got that, she can, when she dazes somebody, she can make another attack.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess she then has access to the cards, like Freya's Blessing and Odin's Blessing.
Yes.
She can suddenly actually be quite tanky with access to those cards, which I think is good.
So we're going to double down on her as an experiment as well. We're going to dump one of the tactics cards and instead use Doom Prophecy.
Ah, okay, nice.
So here's the thinking. The thinking is that she center grabs safe and then retreats, hopefully onto an F point secure. So now she's scoring 2 points. But even still, the point is that she's there. People are going to want to come after her. And if they send some sort of big bloke after her, that's when she does Doom Prophecy. So the idea would be she do Doom Prophecy when she's isolated against an opponent, and she can murder that guy, and then to be safe because nobody's coming after her, even though she has no more physical defense.
Yeah, and she's got 4 physical, doesn't she?
Yeah. So
she's adding quite a lot of dice. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I have power and it's a big bloke, he's likely to be a big size, so I can use her spender, which adds his size on top of it.
Ah, nice. So you're getting, what, is that 12 dice?
Yeah, exactly.
If it's like size 3? Oh, yeah, that's pretty savage.
And if it's Lady Thor, she's going to re-roll one of those dice on top of it. And so, yeah.
I like that. I like that little Doom Prophecy plan.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a when you give your adversary a poison pill, basically. It's like you can come after her, but then you're going to trigger this really awful situation.
Yeah.
So that's the big switch for her. So that takes Namor out. Then it's unlikely I'll be able to keep Zemo. And so I've thought to try Strucker out.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. Giving out I think Strucker is quite a good character that, because he's in a very similar spot to Zemo, doesn't get played very much.
Right.
But he gives out Incinerate, which is excellent for Asgard. That just means that their attacks are doing more. Yeah, and obviously the Strategic Genius reroll is brilliant.
Exactly. So what he gives up is medium move instead of long, but that's okay. The charge is losing the charge is not great, but on the other hand, my real focus on Zemo is always supposed to be support anyway.
Yeah.
And so this guy, he could survive maybe better than Zemo. He's got reroll and a healing factor.
Yeah.
He's got essentially pity, just like Loki 2 does.
It's slightly different. It's my favorite superpower in the game because it's so funny. It's like when you attack someone, both players count the skulls and the rolls. So it means you're upping your odds of success on attack, but they're also upping their odds on success and defense. So it's particularly great when you're attacking a character that has like a low defense.
Oh, I see. Okay, I didn't quite understood that. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think he's great fun. And I agree. He probably is a bit tankier with his spender as well. If he gets to it, he can remove damage.
Yeah.
So it's like the Venom spender. So yeah, no, that's a very exciting one. I'm intrigued to hear how that pans out on the table.
Yeah, so full credit to the crew in the car who brainstormed this up for me, which is the best reason to have a road trip, my friends, is that you have that car journey or your train journey home, and you're just buzzing from the event, and just make sure that you use the opportunity while it's all still fresh in your head to talk through options with your friends and come up with something. Yeah,
nice. I guess so often when you're coming back from a big weekend like this, it's exhausting, and so actually having a 6-hour drive suddenly actually becomes quite fun because you're just chatting about what you've learned.
100%. That's exactly what happened.
Well, excellent. Do you want to say anything more about your roster?
No, those were the big swaps, so I'm looking forward to trying it out again at the next event that I can get to.
Good stuff. I mean, the event as a whole sounded excellent. It's always fun as well that what I love about MCP is it's such an international community. You've gone and played 6 French people, and actually some of them have come across to the UK. You've met some of them at WTC, so I love that about MCP.
Definitely. If you are playing the game casually or whatever, I still advise you to try to get to an event. Being part of the community, it'll be less onerous than you're probably making it out to be, if that's what's holding you back. And you just gain so much in the social aspect of it. It's really, really a key part of the game. Like, the game is about the hobbying part, it's about the playing part, it's about the dojoing part, but it's also the building social relationships part. And it's a key aspect of the game that you're just not taking advantage of if you don't go to an event.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. A lot of my very close friends are now gamers, and actually it's a great way to keep in contact with them. I've moved away from London, and I get to keep in contact with you guys basically because I go to events that you guys are at. So that's an awesome part of the game.
Yeah, 100%. It's good now that you're so far away that we still see you.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll wrap up there. But before we do, I'd be remiss not to shout out your excellent podcast, Across the Bifrost. I know you've taken it over relatively recently and done a great job, you and Jamie.
Thank you.
So, big shout out.
Yeah, we've been really enjoying it. We are currently working through a backlog of all the character boxes that came out since the original hosts went on hiatus, and we're just about caught up, so those are coming out. And then we do special Patreon first episodes where we interview winners of various events and try to understand how they won. And so you can come to our Discord. We have Across the Bifrost Discord where you can join us and have the chat, or you can go to Patreon and look for Across the Bifrost there. And if you give us, I think it's £3 a month, you can then get advantage of all those Patreon special episodes before they get released to the public, and also help support us.
Yeah, and they're great fun. I've actually guest starred on your podcast with the Spider Foes, my Spider Foes.
One of the most really popular Patreon episodes. Everybody was super intrigued by that. We constantly get feedback about the Spider Foes episode. In fact, just happened today. The guy wanted to know who you were so he could credit you with the changes he was making to his roster. Yeah,
well, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it was good fun to do.
Yeah.
And it's good that we could return the favor and get you on.
Thank you. Yeah, it was brilliant.
And where else can people find you, Norbert?
I'm Dr_Norbert, or just Dr. Norbert. So Dr. Norbert or Dr_Norbert, pretty much everywhere. I'm on Facebook, Blue Sky, and Discord, various servers on Discord.
And your Instagram is, you put up some of your minis on there as well, which is awesome to see.
That's right. Yeah. On Instagram, I put up miniatures, full doctor there, DOCTOR_Norbert. And I put up my, I put them up mostly. I've always started doing it as a routine, but mostly it's there just to encourage other people to paint. Yeah. Because I'm not terribly good at painting. And so I feel like I'm just going to put this up there and show the world that it's okay, that, I painted this and it's mine. And it's not, a hyper well painted thing, but I'm hoping that people see, well, okay, he's putting that up. Well, maybe I can put mine up, or I can try to do something like that. So that's why I've done it. And I get a lot of nice feedback as a result. So it's good.
Yeah, nice. And it's always nice to record your painting journey. That's what I've found with mine. Like,
oh my goodness, yeah! Like this roster, it had some very old characters in it, like Zbaranzima 1 and Valkyrie from my very early days of painting. And then I have like my latest, Thor 2 and Lady Jane. And the progress is remarkable. I mean, the seeing them sit next to each other, you're like, holy moly, this is really, it really puts into perspective after months of work.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really good. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm Smeagol's Corner. I'm similar to Norbert. I want to put up the paint jobs so that everyone can see them, and I record my painting journey, so check it out there. I've got some Lord of the Rings miniatures on there as well, so that hence the name. And then I'm also on Discord as Archie_RC, and I'm also on Longshanks' Archie Cable. So yeah, drop us a line, give us some feedback, tell us if you enjoy our content. And just a big shout out again. Thank you, Norbert, so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
I was absolutely honored to be on here. It's just something that I didn't really think I was worthy to be on a show like this. So it was really nice to be asked.
No, it's always great to have new people on and hear about new rosters, and especially you, such a pillar of the community.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. And of course, until next time, keep up the conquest.
The name's Cable. Remember it.